I'm from Federal University of Rio Grande do Sul, and I'm a researcher at CDP. And right now I'm in Tract. I think that this is my second time in a not virtual class, but in a physical class. The first one was 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago when I taught my last class in the graduate class of economics at UNIS. And I would like, first of all, to say thank you to Carol for inviting me to be here. It's a great pleasure to be part of this course. The second one, I think that I'm in the wrong place. Instead of to be here, I think that I could be seated because you have so many professors here, Gary, Anna, Carol, and Roberto. I think that I have more to learn with them instead of me, but this is the case, right? And the last point that I'd like to talk is before starting, I apologize for any mistake that I have during my presentation in terms of English mistake, and my English accent that is terrible. And what more? I think that's all. All right, let's go. I decided to present this one, the Keynesian revolution. Why does money matter? I try to investigate, to present the ideas that I have about Keynes, the idea that I have about Keynesian theory. This is my interpretation. Maybe Gary has a different interpretation, Anna, Carol, Robert, another one. But this is my view about Keynes and the Keynesian theory, right? If you have any question, if you have any doubt, let me know during my presentation, no problem. I divide this presentation in 6 parts. Some initial considerations, what is the Keynesian revolution, how is the Keynesian revolution developed, monetary theory of production, why does money matter, and as a result, why finance is so important, why is Keynes important today, or why Keynesian theory is important today, and finally some reference that I present. Some initial consideration. And the first question, how do you define the Keynesian revolution? Let me, if you have to answer this question, give, for instance, one word or one expression about Keynesian revolution. What do you know about this one? Let me pick up some ideas. What? Uncertain. What more? Liquid? Liquid. Which more? This is not the point that I'm expecting.
Money is not neutral.
Sorry?
Money is not neutral.
Yeah, this money is not neutral. Come on.
Effective demand.
Effective demand. One more.
Animal spirits.
Sorry? Animal spirits. All right.
State.
All right. Yeah, state intervention. I'm glad for one specific reason. Nobody talk about fiscal policy, right? Fiscal policy is so important in the Keynesian theory, or in Keynes' argument, but it's not the most important economic policy. The most important economic policy is monetary policy, in my view, right? I don't know if the others think the same, but in my view, monetary policy is the most important economic policy, right? And the second one is the idea of socialization of investment. Because I think that this expression defines the central point, the core of the Keynesian theory, in terms of intervention, in terms of state, in terms of economic policy, in terms of to affect the modus operandi of the economic monetary theory, right? But that's okay. I would say that for me, as I told you before, the most important is to understand the function of money in the economic system, in the capitalism economy, right? And as a result, the monetary policy. Second question. In your view, how do you define the Keynesian revolution? How is developed the Keynesian revolution? Everybody knows about general theory, but before, more than general theory, what do you think? Great Depression. But the Great Depression, Keynes writes the general theory, or there is a communist depression.
First World War. The gold standard. The gold standard.
No. There are three special books. Treatise. On money. 1930. General theory. 1936. And one more. I think that Keynes starts with this one because he begins to criticize, and after we reject the orthodox theory. The first one is Tract monetary reform. Sorry about my accent, about my words, right? Then, when you are thinking about how the Keynesian theory is developed, you must think about these three books. And between the treatise and the general theory, you have the drafts of general theory that you can find in the collect rights of John Maynard Keynes, volume 29. Then, if you want to be Keynesian, if you want to be a post-Keynesian, you must read at least this Alcoron. I don't know how do you know this one in English, right? This is our Bible. This is the Keynesian Bible, right? Then, to understand how the Keynesian theory is developed, I think that this is the most important. And finally, why do you think that Keynes is important today? Or Keynesian theory is important today?
Now, I say that after 2008 financial crisis, our people started to revive this ideas. And from
International financial crisis, 2007, 2008, what more? The COVID crisis. This is not a fact demand crisis, but is some people used to say, and I agree that is not a fact demand crisis, but maybe is a supply crisis, right? Due to the lockdown.
And nowadays, like everybody's talking about inflation.
Inflation. I was not thinking about this, but I can talk about this later. And I didn't prepare this one in my PowerPoint, but I can say that Keynesian theory is not inflationary theory. Despite the fact, a lot of new classical used to argue that Keynes was pro-inflation, doesn't make sense. If you want to understand the Keynesian idea about inflation, go to the how to pay for the war. Right? Then you have the answer of why inflation is not important in the Keynesian theory. Right? I would say mainly because during this period, the international financial crisis and the COVID-19 crisis, you have counter-cycle economic policy. Right? Then Keynes is important, Keynes is back, and let me make a joke. I hope that Lula is back in this era, right? All right, doing this, I don't know if I couldn't happen this one, sorry about that. Let's go. In my view, what is the Keynesian revolution? Then I have two points. The first one, it criticizes and rejects the main assumption of the neoclassical period. I don't know if this assumption is the correct word, maybe the core of the neoclassical period. And the core of the neoclassical period is gold standard monetary regime. I think that we talked about this one. It means that you have fixed exchange rate and gold is stable in terms of domestic currency. Have free trade and have the idea of balanced trade and automatic adjustment based on price flow system, right? This is the first one. Where and when Keynes criticized and reject this gold standard regime. In the Currency and Finance, 1930, he used to say that, I present it later, but the first moment is one, a tract on monetary reform, 1923, and volume 4 of Collecting Rights, Treatise on Money, volume 2, and the International Clearing Union, 1908, when he presented his proposal to reform the international monetary system. And finally, the activities, 1922, 1929, the return to gold and industrial policy. The main arguments that Keynes criticize and reject. Gold standard is a barbarous relic. This is in fact monetary reform. The second point, gold exchange standard proposal to spend the international liquidity. You used to say that to spend the international liquidity, instead of having only gold, you must have universal currency, like pound, like dollar, like euro in the modern days, right? Something like that. The third one, the Keynesian proposal in 1930, in this volume 2, supranational bank proposal, a proposal of having an international bank or financial bank, and one specific currency without storage of the central bank. And the idea of Bancor, that you have in the clearing union, and mainly the idea that in modern economies, that you don't have more laissez-faire, you need some protection. And this is the idea that Keynes developed at the end of the 20s when he was participating in some commissions to discuss the idea of how UK could survive during the Great Depression. And he proposed protectionism policy, right? The second point, or the second assumption, or the second point of the core of the classical theory, Say's law, or the idea of general equilibrium. You know that the idea of Say's law, supply creates its own demand, and the idea of general equilibrium, if you have, in the economic system, if you have any markets and any minus one of this market are in equilibrium, it means that the last one is also in equilibrium. It means that you have always full employment. You have only disequilibrium, or you don't have full employment due to some exogenous situations, right? Some intervention, some wrong intervention in the economy, and so on. But in general, you have full employment. When you can observe his critics and here rejection in the general theory of interest and money, and the general theory and after volume 29 of Collecting Rights. And what are the main arguments, or how Keynes replace this one by other arguments? The first is someone talked about effect demand principle, and the second one, the idea that capitalism is inherently unstable. The third one is the idea of normal funds theory of interest rate, based on switch economies, such as Olin and Vixel. And the idea is that interest rate is determined by all forms of funds, exempt funds, credit, bond, saving, and investment, the relationship between save and investment. And in equilibrium, as our saving determines investment, right? Then you must have saving, and save determines investment. Then exempt is, I would say that XN and ex post investment is equal saving. Where you can find this one? The general theory. The general theory and after, volume 14. Keynes discussed the idea of interest rate. By the way, after the general theory was criticized in 1936 or 36 by Olin, by Jacob Weiner, and others, Keynes wrote an article in the Economic Journal, and the article was to explain the idea of general theory, and he introduced the idea of finance motive in the economy, in the demand for money, right? What are his main arguments? The idea of the interest rate is a monetary phenomenon, and the idea that saving is not the prerequisite or the precondition to have investment. And finally, the last one is the quantity of money. The general price level, according to the quantity of money, is directly proportional to the amount of money supplied, as well money affects only price. It means that money is neutral. Someone talk about non-neutrality, right? Where can I find his critics about this one? And when he rejected this idea? Tract, Treatise, and general theory. The main arguments: changes in the value of money affect production and distribution. Then money matters, at least in the short run. This is the main idea of the Tract monetary reform. And finally, when there is a transition from the treatise to the general theory, he developed the idea of monetary theory of production, right? And then this is, in my view, is the core of the new classical theory that Keynes tried to criticize and reject when he finished his monetary theory of production, right? And the second point is, Keynes revolution, as I said before, aims to understand the modus operandi of the monetary theory of production. This is the reason that I told when I asked for one expression or some words about what we think about Keynesian theory. I would like to have this specific answer. Money matters. Monetary policy is important. Money is the soul of the Keynesian theory, right? Given that, let's go to the, I don't know, given that, how another professor here could be here instead of me, right? The second point in my presentation is how is the Keynesian revolution developed? Then I will explain 3 books, the main idea of the 3 books: Tract, Treatise, the general theory, and the drafts from the Treatise to the general theory. I will pick up one specific draft. It's not an article because it's really a draft. Keynes began to start to write a specific argument and finish suddenly to do other things more interesting, for instance, right? Tract. What are the goals of the tract? First, it shows how the instability, inflation and deflation of the standard value affects employment, economic activity, saving, profit, and so on. And second, it introduces expectations in the quantity theory of money. Not explicit, it doesn't mention expectation, but implicit, you think about expectations, right? Then, when he introduces expectations in the quantity of money, in the Marshallian quantity of money, he used to say that in the short run, money matters. It means money in the short run is not neutral, right? Basic chapters. Tract has 5 chapters, but the most important chapters for me is number 1 and chapter 3. I forgot to tell you that I will use several Keynes quotations, right? I will not read it, every quotation, but I will pick up some specific points of that quotation. In chapter 1, he analyzed the consequence of to society when you have inflation and when you have deflation. Why? Because he used to say, that when you have inflation, deflation, you affect not only the value of money, but you affect implicit the expectations of the economic agents. And if you affect implicit the expectations of economic agents, it means that production and distribution will also change, right? Then he divides the economic system in 3 classes. You have investing class, or rentier. You have business class, or entrepreneur. And you have worker class. Let me put it here, just to simplify. You have rentier. You have business class with that. And you have worker class. And this is the first quotation. Each process, inflation or deflation, has inflicted great injuries. Each has an effect in altering the distribution of wealth between different classes. And he used to say that inflation is worse than deflation, and I'll explain later. And also, each has also an effect in overstimulating or retarding the production of wealth. And in this case, the deflation is the more injurious. Just to synthesize, if you have inflation affects the rentier that you receive income in the future, you receive will in the future, then rentier is losing income, is losing will. Business class, if you have inflation from today to tomorrow, it means that when I sell my final product, I receive more for this one. Then this benefit the business class. And also, maybe this is double. You have two situations. If you suppose that you don't have indexation, right? If you don't have indexation, if inflation is going up, the real wage, of course, will decrease. But on the other hand, if you have inflation, business is going up, business is increasing, then you hire more workers. Then you can say, and this is the Keynes argument, you can say that inflation is also good for workers, right? Then the first point is inflation affects the income distribution of the economic system. And the second one, if you have deflation, it means that the rentier, you get more real income in the future, then the rentier class has some benefits for this one. The business class, if I have my cost of production today, and I will sell my product tomorrow, and the prices are going up, maybe my profit will decrease. Then this is terrible for business class. And again, two possibilities. If you have deflation, maybe the real wage will increase, but the real wage will increase for people that are hired. If you have a lot of unemployment, it means that because investor, you not invest in the entrepreneur, not invest in the economic process, right? Then it means that the working class will lose. Then this is the first idea. Then, as I told you before, when Keynes tried to understand this system, this situation, then he used to say, something's wrong in the quantity of money. Because the quantity of money says that always the supply of money affect only price, given the full employment situation, given the demand for money, right? Then he says, no, it's not correct. You have money when cause inflation or deflation affect the distribution and affect the economic process. Then I must investigate the quantity of money, right? In chapter 3, he investigates, he analyzes the quantity of money, the Marshallian monetary theory. And I quote another Keynes quote is a part of page 61 and page 65. This theory, the quantity of money, is in the longer run probably true. Then he used to say, in the longer run, the quantity of money is true. You must have monetary policy to balance, to equilibrate, to not stimulate inflation and deflation. You need to have an optimal monetary policy to bring the price constant around the time. But this long run is a misled guide to current affairs. In the long run, we are all that. This metaphor, I would say that Keynes is thinking not in the long run, he's thinking about the short run. When you are making expectations, and the idea of uncertainty is not here, of course, but when you are thinking about taking decisions, you are thinking about uncertain expectations and so on. Then in the long run, you cannot say that the money is neutral, because you don't know what will happen in the future. But in the short run, you can observe what's going on in the income distribution, in the production process, and so on. Then in the long run, we are there, but the long run is a resilient guide to current affairs. Then people are always changing position, changing habits, and so on. And this is the effect that is important. Just to analyze in terms of equation, this is the traditional Marshallian equation, and is the money supply. It is the total income in which people want to hold in terms of cash, cash. And Y is the GDP, and P is the price, right? He write like this one, it means that if K and Y are constant, if you are in full employment, and the income velocity of the economic aggregates, or if the demand for money is constant, it means that you have a relationship, direct and proportional relationship between E and F. Then this is the long run. This is the Marshallian quantity theory. Then he writes the quantity in this way. N, all form of cash in circulations, the money supply. P is the level price. K and K prime are respectively the total amount of cash that you hold for consumption. Then is the money that I have in my pocket that I will buy the newspaper today. And K prime is the amount of cash that financial system have. It means that my banking deposits, something like that, right? And R is the banking reserves, right? And when you write the Marshallian equation this way, Keynes used to say that if K prime and R are constant, it means that N and price rise and fall together. This is Marshallian quantity of theory. Then this theory, in the long run, is not open to question. It's true, absolutely true, right? But considering that K and K prime depend on the wealth of the community and mainly on its habits, and this is the idea that I introduce, in my point of view, introduce implicit expectations in his monetary equation, it means that something will happen in this economy. The social organization or institutions affect the demand for money, and as a result, it changes the production and distribution process. In other words, a change in N affects P, and P affects the expectations, the economic agent expectation, and as a result, affect K, K prime, and R. Then, in the short run, you have changes in distribution, and I present in the first chapter, and changes in production, right? And this is the main quotation. Change in the value of P will not precisely in proportion to the change in N, right? Then, again, I think that he is introduced implicitly the idea of expectations. To sum up the main idea of the tract, in the short run, short run, money matters, at least in the short run. Let me ask you something. This main idea, supposing that Keynes is endogenizing the demand for money, what do you think about this one in the modern theory? What do you think about the classical monetary arguments about this one? This idea is similar to which this idea in terms of monetarism. Do you have an idea? This is the same idea of Friedman's idea that was presented in his classical article 1956, when Friedman reinterprets the Keynesian, the monetary theory of product, the quantity of money, he endogenizes the equilibrium velocity or the demand for money with a lot of variables. The real interest rate over P, the nominal interest rate, the preference curve, the choice that you have to have, the expectations, and expectations in Friedman are adaptative expectations, permanent income, and some random variable. This is the same idea that Keynes presented in 1923. It was just a Lavoisier change, adaptation, something like that, right? Then 33 years before, Keynes presented this idea. And 33 years later, Friedman repeated with some sophistication, repeat the same idea that Keynes presented in 1923, right? Then this is the first point. And here in this tract monetary reform, we can observe this is the first time that Keynes criticized, not to reject, but criticize the tautology of the monetary, of the quantity of money, right? The second point, the second main book, Treatise, goes. The first one, it aims at describing the fundamental problems of monetary theory, not only the characteristics of static equilibrium, but also disequilibrium. Again, he assumes that in the long run, you have equilibrium. For instance, prime, P, Y, demand, supply. This is one equilibrium. This is another equilibrium. And this is another one equilibrium. Oh, sorry. Yeah, that's okay. He assumes that in the long run, you have always equilibrium. But he would like to discuss what happened in the economy when you are changing from equilibrium A to equilibrium B to equilibrium C. What's going on here and what's going on from B to C, right? Then this is the first idea. And the second, it shows how the modern monetary system or banking system determines the change of economic system from one position to another equilibrium position. It means this situation that's changed from A to B and B to C is related with the idea of money, how money affects this situation of change from A, B, C, right? Basic chapters 10, 11, 13, and 15. You have a lot of important chapters, but for me, these are so important. Another professor is coming here. Hi, Simone.
Hi, good morning. Sorry to hear
You want to change your place with me here?
No, no.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
Then you have a lot of, I would say that the first volume is so important, but I just pick up 4 chapters to explain the main idea of Treatise. But I have to mention about the first 5 chapters, the first 5 chapters at least. In the first chapters of volume 1, Keynes, after dividing the demand for money as income deposit, business deposit, and saving deposit, this is so similar to demand for money that you have in general theory. You have transactional motive, you have precautionary motive, you have speculative motive. And the supply of money, mainly state money and basically bank money, shows that the supply of money is endogenous. That is, it is determined or created by the financial system or by the banking system. You have 2 experts here, Ana Rosa and Simone Delps, about banking system, right? Then for Keynes, the main idea of the treatise is to say that credit is the pavement along which the production increases, and it is provided by the bankers, right? Then the first chapters, I would say, the first 3 chapters, we have this idea. He defines, he classifies, he analyzes the idea of demand for money and supply of money. Chapter 10 and 11, he presented the fundamental equations of monetary theory and show how saving, investment, cost of production, profits, interest rate, and other variables change the value of money. And when you have changes in the value of money, this change affects the equilibrium position from one position, A, to B, to B, to C, as I show in the graph, right? Again, another idea, just to clarify this point, the economic system is in equilibrium if economic agents' expectations are neutral. I'm not bear, I'm not bull, I'm neutral. I just cross my arms, something like that, right? Or if saving is either investment, or you have profit maximization, right? On the other hand, you have a disequilibrium if economic agents are mainly bulls or bears. Saving is different from investment, and profits do not cover the cost of production. If you have the first situation, if you have, in the situation that you have disequilibrium, you have 2 possibilities. Or you have a situation with unemployment and deflation, or you have a situation of inflation and overproduction, something like that, right? I said this is one quotation that expresses the same idea. I just pick up this point here. Saving becomes an equal to the cost of investment. If you have this situation, if saving becomes an equal to the cost of the new investment, it means that you are going to up bullish position, or you are going to a bearish position, right? And if you are a bear, you take a risk, you invest, right? You don't have overview, you don't have liquidity preference. But if you are bear, if my expectation is bear, and if I'm bearish, it means that I prefer liquidity. I not take decision of investment, of consumption, right? In chapter 13, he described the modus operandi of the bank rate. The idea is to show how the interest rate affect, or in terms of economic situation, bring the economic system to an equilibrium position, or to have a disturbance in terms of economic situation and of economic equilibrium. And at the same time, how interest rate affect the saving and the investment decision. Why? Because, again, when economic agents have expectations about the bank rate, for instance, let's bring this situation to Brazilian economy. The Selic today is 13.75. If people used to think that in the next Copom meeting, the Selic will increase more 5%, I can anticipate myself with this decision, or I can cross my arms, just expect what's going on after the decision, right? Then, when the central bank analysis shows that possibly that the basic interest rate will change, I will be more bull or I will be more bear. Depends of if I'm optimist or if I'm skeptical about the economic situation. In Keynes' words, another quotation, changing bank rate will affect the volume of financial circulation and also the industrial circulation. What is this? Financial circulation and industrial circulation. This is the main idea of chapter 15. In chapter 15, Keynes introduced the idea of asset choice theory. It means you have two markets. You have the financial market and you have industrial market or real market, right? Of course, there is a connection between both, right? If I don't have profits, if I don't have owner capital, I must borrow money from the bank. Then there is a connection between the financial market and the real market, right? And Keynes will show that this situation, this link, the interest rate, and also the expectation that the economic agents have about the future will affect the demand for industrial market or industrial circulation and the demand for financial market or financial circulation. The amount of money allocated to the industrial circulation of capital and to financial circulation of capital depends on the bank rate, as I told you before, and also, as I told you a few minutes ago, of the economic agent expectations, if you are bull or if you are bear. Then interest rate and expectations matter. Then this is the second point. If you come back to Tract expectations matter. Here you have interest rate matter and expectations also matter. Then you have another variable that is introduced in his model that will be very important for the monetary theory of production, that will be described, will be defined in the general theory. Not implicit in general theory, but is the main idea of general theory. Given that, another long quotation, I just select some points. The volume of bank money encouraged the bull market, and it refused to increase the volume of bank money, will stimulate the amount of money for interest, right? Then, if you have credit, you have acceptable interest rate, you are a bull, you accept risk, you invest, and you have the volume of capital allocated in the industrial circulation will increase, and the volume of capital allocated to financial circulation will decrease, right? Finally, to sum up, what Keynes suggests in his treatise? Cheap money, it means monetary policy, to have and his point is very similar to Wicksel's point. the idea that you have the interest rate market and the natural interest rate, right? Then you have to balance the interest rate market and the natural interest rate. Cheap money or monetary policy and fiscal policy. Fiscal policy doesn't appear in treaties. However, it appears in the same period that he wrote Treatise, using the means to prosperity, 1932. The means to prosperity that you can find with one assets and persuasion for volume number 9. Keynes argues that when monetary policy is not, people doesn't respond with the two monetary policies, you must have fiscal policy, right? Let's go to the draft. The DC, and I pick up just one specific point, right? You have 3 drafts that have the same idea. I think that this is more consistent. This will have more arguments. It's not hard, as I told you before, it suddenly stops. I'm going to stop to have anything more, right? But this is more important to understand the idea of monetary theory of production. The decision between a cooperative economy and an entrepreneurial economy. This is in volume 29. In this article, and I couldn't call it article because this is not an article, right? Keynes defines an entrepreneur or monetary economy that is an economy in which the entrepreneur is not interested in the amount of production, the amount of product or commodities, but in the amount of money. This is, let's associate, this is the same idea of Minsky idea. Our economy is not a medieval economy. Our economy is a casino economy, is a Wall Street economy, right? People don't want to accumulate commodity. People want to accumulate money, wealth, financial assets, right? Let's go to understand this one. Then the first one, he rejects the idea of supply creates its own demand and argues that expenditure creates its own income. In other words, it's defined the idea of effective demand. For Keynes, the use of money is a condition for fluctuations in effective demand, right? I bring back the same idea when we analyze the monetary theory of production, right? It's the same idea that you have in Marx and Keynes code. And this is the first time, the first and the last one, that he makes some good point. He brings good points for Marx. The other, he deteriorates Marx. General theory, the main goal. Reject the classical theory and formulates a theory of output as a whole. And when he is presenting the idea of the general theory, Keynes says monetary economy is essentially one in which changes viewed about the future are capable of influencing the quantity of employment and not merely its direction. Then the idea of expectation, if I'm so skeptical about what will happen in the economy in 2023, in Brazil, for instance, I cross my arms. I will not take decision. Then you don't have investment, you don't have consumption, you have hoarding, or you have liquidity preference, right? Basic chapters 2, 3, 11, 12, 13, 17, 24. If the first time that I presented, I select some special chapters of general theory, and Gilberto Tadeu Lima, do you know Gilberto Tadeu Lima? People that are from here, no? He told me in the class, stand up the hand of Ferrari. General theory, all 24 chapters are important. And you cannot say that you have only 2, 3, or 4. Then, considering that he is not here, and I cannot pseudographie him, right? I assume that the most important chapters are this one that I presented, right? But he was right. I'm wrong. He was completely right about this one, right? In chapter, in chapter 2, Keynes, on the one hand, explained the level of employment is not determined by the labor market equilibrium. Then the classical theory suppose you have labor demand, labor supply, is a situation of equilibrium. If productivity or capital increase in the function production, we have another labor demand. If you have a migration from South Africa, from Africa to Brazil in terms of labor force, the labor force moving to the right, then you have always situations of equilibrium. And this situation of equilibrium between labor demand and labor supply are a situation of full employment. Right? Then he says that this situation has a specific consequence. Have only two situations of unemployment. Voluntary unemployment. If I reject to work, to be hired because the wage that my entrepreneur will pay, my boss will pay me, is not important for me, it's very cheap for me, right? Or the second one, you have a situation of frictional situation, unemployment. If I'm a professor, I decide to quit my situation, my position of that profession, and I will be to work in a bank. I have a cost of learning to change my situation, my position, right? This is true only if you have two kinds of unemployment. But you have another kind of unemployment that is involuntary. Then you have always unemployment. And more, the labor market or the labor, the volume of labor is not determined by the labor market. It is determined by the effect demand, right? Then, if you have involuntary unemployment, it means that you have labor demand, but you don't have a labor supply. You have a minimum wage that you can pay, similar to the total cost that you have to take decision of investment, and the situation. And you can have any kind of employment level in this area here. Then the expectations of profit, the expectation of getting more income in the future, you will decide the investment decision of the entrepreneurs, not the cost of the wage. Right? Then the labor reform that you have here in Brazil in 2007 doesn't care for entrepreneurs. It's a peanuts for entrepreneurs. They think about expectation of investment, of return of the capital, right? Then this is the control, and I told you before, the other hand, he introduced a third category of employment, that is involuntary employment. Chapter 3 is considering that the level of employment is not determined in the labor market. He used to say that the level of employment is determined by the principal effect demand. In his words, what is the effect demand? The effect demand is simply the aggregate income that entrepreneur expect to receive. Again, the entrepreneur is not caring about if I have to pay 1,000 reais to the workers or 5,000 reais to the workers. I'm expecting if I can pay 1,000 reais for the work, but the expectation of profit is zero, then I will not hire the worker. I can pay $5,000 to the worker if my expectation of profit is more than this one. Then I will hire the workers, right? This is the point. This principle, effect demand principle, has 8 propositions. I think that I'm so slow in this. I have more time, right? 9:30. Let me know when you are finished, right? At what time I have to finish? 10:30?
It's 10.
All right. I just find my name. I speak so fast. I used to say this one. I'm Ferrari, right? When on the cockpit was not Barrichello, but Schumacher, of course. Right? Right. Then you have 8 principles. I just pick up 6. The first one, income depends on the volume of employment. Second one, consumption depends on psychology of the community. Third one, investment is, the total of investment is determined by B2. The third one, equilibrium, the aggregate demand of the effect demand is consumption plus investment, and feed and is a supply, aggregate supply. Equilibrium, the volume of employment depends on the supply, the supply position, if it's competition or if it's not a market, perfect market, something like that. Propensity consumption, B2, and B2 that is investment. And the last one, when employment increase, B1 increase, but not so much as B2. It means that given these 8, I present just 6, given these 8 principles, you can observe that the most important variable is investment. Then, if you don't have investment, you can increase with consumption. For instance, in the first and maybe in the second term of Lula, the economic increased by consumption. During the first term of Dilma, investment was the main variable. Then consumption increased the economy, but only consumption. There is sometimes you have a gap of effect demand in terms of supply side, right? In terms of supply output, right? Then you have this gap, you have consequence in terms of inflation. Then the main variable is investment. I skip this one. Let's go to the chapter 11. In chapter 11, he tried to analyze the main variable of the effect demand, that is investment. And investment depends parcel of the demand schedule. It means you have investment in the short run, but the most important is investment in the maturity of investment in the long run. And you have the rate of interest. The marginal efficiency of capital is defined in terms of the expectation of the real income of capital and on the current supply price of capital asset. This is the idea. If the supply price of if the demand price of capital is greater than the supply price of capital, you have investment. And on the other hand, if the supply price of capital is greater than the demand price of capital, you don't have investment, right? I'm not wasting my time here. Moreover, and this is more important, investment involves 2 types of risk. You have the entrepreneur's or borrower risk, and you have the lender's risk. Maybe if you are thinking about only financial system, the banking risk, right? This is the main idea of Minsky that I will show you later. For this reason, the schedule of marginal efficiency of capital has a fundamental importance. First, because the expectation about the future affect economic decisions, and second, because it mitigates the risks necessary to increase the margin of safety. If you have margin of safety, it will reduce the risk of the borrower and of the lender. Right? Chapter 12. I love this one. Chapter 12 is discuss the long-term expectations. In this chapter, it's possible to show that you have a lot of institutional insights. This is the reason that Otávio Augusto Conceição is a professor that, you know, the professor from Federal University of Rio Grande do Sul, and I wrote an article in 2005 in the Journal of Economic Issues that we link the post-Keynesian theory with the old institutionalists, Commons and Vernon, right? And based mainly in the chapter 12. The main idea of this chapter is to show that expectations are related not to probability, risk of probability, but to uncertainty. You bring the idea of uncertainty, right? No, someone bring. All right. What is uncertain? I will not go to this one because everybody knows what's uncertain. Just to synthesize, uncertainty it means that I don't know what will happen. What will happen this night in the game Flamengo against Atlético Paranaense, right? Despite the fact that the last Sunday we won the game 5-0, but I don't know what's going on today. This is uncertain, right? And the idea, if you have uncertainty about the future, don't know anything about the future, your expectations about the future affect the economic decision. If I'm so skeptical about what's going on tomorrow, I cross my arms and not take decision of consumption, of investment, of lending, of offer loans to the entrepreneurs, right? In this context, if you have uncertainty, you have two options: or cross your arms or take decisions, right? And the point is, how can I take decisions? I take decisions, and I think that I'm going to in the same point that Norberto used to discuss. I must have confidence, and I must have conventions, right? And confidence means assuming that the existing state of affairs will not continue indefinitely. I need to have a favorable environment. I must believe the reaction, I must know the reaction of everyone concerning the interest rate, concerning the fiscal policy to take a decision, right? Take investment, to invest, to consume, and so on. Then the economic agent have to predict the psychology of the market and the prospective yield of assets. Now I have a connection between the idea of uncertainty in the chapter 12 and the idea of Keynes probability in his Treatise on Probability, 1921, 2018, according to the collecting rights. For Keynes probability, you have the premises, direct knowledge of probability, and also have the conclusions, weight of arguments. For instance, I used to bring this argument. If I go to casino and I decide to choose number 27 and put my money in number 27, I know that the probability of having 27 is 1/36. This is scientific probability. But the point is, why do I choose 27? This is my subjective possibility, right? This is the weight of argument. I choose number 27 because I had a dream with number 27, because I live in the street 27, and so on, right? Then the point is, probability matters only if you have one conclusion, the weight of argument. I don't care if the probability is 1/36 to get to number 27, if I don't play roulette, right? But if I play roulette, I have to put my money in one specific number, and I have associated some arguments with them. Bring this situation to the real world. The point is, I don't want to take decisions because I don't know what's going on tomorrow. But if I have some arguments, if I have some weight of arguments, some subjective arguments, I take decision of investment. What are these subjective arguments? I know what my neighbor is doing. I know what the central bank will do, will do tomorrow, and so on. I know that you have state intervention in the economy, and so on. You have an environment, institutional environment that brings you to take decisions. This is the main point. I skip this one. And as I told you before, there is a connection between the real market and the financial market. Right? If you have this situation, then you have this in treatise and you have this one in the general theory. Then, if I have decision to invest, I take money from the bank, and bank offer credit for me. And Keynes used to say, this is a normal situation for the economic system. But when the capital development of a country becomes a byproduct of the activities of a casino, the jobs are likely to be outdone. It means that you have unemployment, you have a lack of effective demand. It means the relationship between financial market and real market is necessary. And this relationship develops the economic activity. But when people decide to have more liquidity preference, to invest our money or your savings in financial assets, you don't increase the economic system. You don't increase the economic GDP, right? You can associate this one with the globalization that you have right now. When our economic system depends of the activity of a casino, if the dollar is going up, if the Selic is going down, and so on, it means that you don't have economic, you have increase in the economy. Right? The economy doesn't increase. Then he concludes in this chapter that if you are skeptical about the success of the monetary policy, you must have organizing, you have to organize in the investment. How do you organize investment? Have to interfere in the economic system. I skip this one. Just in this chapter.
Yes, I have a question. Somehow this idea of like Wall Street have to be connected.
Do you want to give your point after? Because I'm almost finished my time here. You have 10 minutes at least. Can be sorry about it. I have a lot of slides for passing. Sorry. Don't worry about it. No?
That's fine.
All right. Then in this chapter, he shows that the interest rate is a monetary phenomenon, and moreover, he shows that saving is doesn't determine investment. Investment determines prices. I skip this one. And he developed the idea of liquidity preference, of course, right? Chapter 17, he explained how the interest rates affect the level of employment. First, it shows that you have future and spot contracts, and you have three attributes to determine the price of an asset: yield or output, carrying cost, and liquidity premium. Then all assets have at least three attributes: Q minus C plus L. Money has two specific characteristics or peculiarities. The elasticity production and elasticity of substitution are zero, and money has a high liquidity premium. Given that, if you could say like this one, you have two assets, for instance, capital goods assets capital good, capital good, that is determined by K minus C, and you have monetary good that's characterized by liquidity. Why? The point is, considering that K minus C is different from L, the point is, if you have uncertainty about the future, what you have in your economy? I prefer liquidity, and I not invest my money. Then you have effect demand price. Just synthesize his idea. I'm running right now. Then the unemployment develops when the object of the desire is money. Again, if people prefer liquidity, hold the money, it means that you don't invest, you don't have consumption. Then you have effect demand crisis. Finally, chapter 24, in the first paragraph, he used to say, this was written in 1936, is still valid for today. The outstanding faults of the economic society in which we live are the failure to provide for full employment, and its arbitrary and inequitable distribution of wealth and income. Then, Keynes proposed two things. The first one is monetary policy, and the second one is fiscal policy. In terms of monetary policy, he used to say that you must have cheap money, stationary monetary policy, to provoke the euthanasia of the rentier. And the second one, he used to say that you must have socialization of investment. It doesn't mean that the state will produce more than petrol, more than oil. You produce any kind of activity in economy. No, it means that the state has an important function. He has to show an economic system that works according to decision that, in favor of decision that I have to take, or take investment and take consumption. The state has to create environment, institutional behavior to enter to economic actors take decisions, right? To sum up, it's necessary to create an institutional environment able to stimulate the economic action decisions and at the same time to stabilize the instability of the economic system. I will skip this one. This PowerPoint, I think that you have this one.
Yes, sure.
Right? This is the new one. I will pass the new one from later, right? This is the piece of monetary material production. I brought some ideas of Paul Davidson and some Fernando Ferrari. The idea of insert money and unemployment, right? That we explained around this point. And the relationship between monetary production and markets. It's the same idea. You have money, have commodity, and have money prime. The amount of money invested in the production process hire one specific commodity, labor force. Labor force produce another commodity that go to the market. You will be selling the market. And this commodity will be sold in the market to have M plus prime. It means that you have more money. Where money prime is greater than money, initial money. This is the logic of the economic system. The logic that the economic system is an accumulation not of commodity, it's accumulation of money. This is the curve, and the main idea that I told you before. The capitalist economy is inherently unstable. Why does money matter? And how about finance? Money has at least two main functions: means of payment, that is, means of contractual settlement, And story of value. Suppose that I have inflation, right? Or maybe if you have inflation, you prefer money because you have a kind of indexation, right? That is, the purchasing power is held over time. Money is the liquid asset per excellence. And this one article that I like so much, it was written in 1930, The Economic Possibilities of Our Grandchildren. He used to say that the log of this economy, the real economy, the monetary economy, the entrepreneurial economy, is the law of money as a possession, right? Then again, the goal of the monetary economy is wealth accumulation, money accumulation, not commodity accumulation, right? The repeated preference you have in the treatise, saving, income, and business deposit, right? Here you have transactional, precautionary, and speculative deposit, income is the same. You have the finance, investment, saving fund circle. I will not explore this one because I know that Roger stood that you present a lecture here, you talk about this one, right? The idea of Minsky idea that there is a relationship between Minsky explored the chapter 11, the chapter 12 of general theory, and the chapter 17, and try to say that changes in financial relations and institutions are very important to the economic system, right? I quote him here, our economy is unstable because of the finance situation, right? He developed the idea of financial fragility. I will not take this one. This analytic, the idea of cash flow balance. You have three positions, higher position, speculative position, and point position. Why is Keynes important today? I will finish this one more 5 minutes, right? As we know, since the 90s, or you could say since the collapse of the Bretton Woods, we have a process of globalization, and the globalization not in the real market, is mainly in the financial market, right? And this can cause several economic crises, and I list some of them. The 1980s foreign debt crisis, Argentina, Brazil, Mexico, and Poland. Saving loan crisis or black money in 1987 in Wall Street. Exchange rate in financial crisis, European monetary system, 1992, Mexico, 1994, and so on. And Nasdaq.com, and capital. Sorry. And the most important for us is the international financial crisis, 2007-2008, and the COVID crisis. This was a mainly endogenous crisis, and this was, I'd say, the exogenous crisis, but affect demand also. Affect first the supply output, the output in terms of aggregate supply, and later the effect demand. You have some measures adopted by all governments around the world in the international financial crisis and in the COVID crisis, in terms of counter-cyclical fiscal policy and counter-cyclical monetary policy. And then the point is, two questions. Is Keynes back? Yes, but I'd say that Keynes was always in our economy, right? And the second one, if Keynes is back, what will be the challenge for the Keynesian theory in nowadays, right? Or what will be the agenda? And I bring just a reflection. I'm not sure about this one. I just bring for reflection. First, counter-cycle fiscal monetary policy permanently not to avoid the economic crisis, but to mitigate the impact of economic crisis that you have in the future, right? It means the same idea of big government or big state, means big government, big state, and means Big Bang idea, or central bank acting in the economic system. Second, I think that all economic agents must have ethical responsibility. And I bring the Keynes idea when he wrote a letter to Harold Doman, and Keynes says, I think that economics is a moral science. Then I think responsibility is very important. Ethical responsibility is very important. No fake news, right? Ethical responsibility is very important, right? Economic system based on market state and government institution, and I think that this is a very important point. There is an economic system that is state in the sky and market in the earth. No. I think that to have a mix of state, government, and institution is very important to legitimate the relationship between market and state and intervention, something like that. Structural reform to eliminate economic constraints and extend potential output. I think that you have to think about the supplies, aggregate supply, not only about effect demand, right? Environmental economics and green industrial points. I confess that I don't know anything about this one, but I think that it's important to put in one specific agenda, right? And a new agenda for global economy. I believe so much in this one. If you don't have a global economic reform, you continue just extinguish the fire that you have in the next economic crisis. As Keynes stated in the end of laissez-faire, besides persuasion, private interests and social interests are not harmonious. If they are not harmonious, I need to have one state, visible hand. I think that this Belous's argument, the original Belous's idea, I think that we need to have a visible hand to mitigate this fight between market and state, between private and public interests. To conclude, the world economy of the capital requires economic and social reform and restrict the role of finance economy to regulate the financial complexity. I think that this is the last one, some reference that you have the basic and you have some additional. To conclude, paraphrasing Lennon and McCartney, I think that to bring this agenda to the real world will be a long and winding road, but you must believe in this. Thank you very much.
We can have 10 minutes for questions.
Sure. If another answer.
Any question? I think there was.
Yeah,
Okay. First of all, congratulations with the insight presentation.
Thank you very much.
And then I do believe that will be in our agenda. Well, my first question sometimes is like,
And one.
no, I don't have one. Yes, our lecturer ideas, now a lot of people are talking about monetary union in America, Latin America, and maybe Brazil would be ahead of it. So I'm trying to have ideas how we can set up a monetary union in the region. And also, we actually say that there's a relocation in terms of production from China, United States, and Europe. They are in their policies now. They're trying to drive all production to Latin America and some friendly countries. So, in that production moving up from the East Asia to Latin America, and also this idea of creating a monetary union. How we can use the ideas of Keynes to set up? And there's advantage and disadvantage of that
The first one is related to monetary union in South America or Latin America, and the second one, how important China or United States for Latin American monetary union.
Yeah, in this kind of.
All right, the first point. If you go to this website here, I wrote in 2001, 2002, and you can download this article that criticized the idea to have a monetary union in South America or in Latin America. For a specific reason, I think that when you have a monetary union, you lose your sovereignty of the monetary policy, right? Then the monetary policy is so important. If you are a Keynesian, monetary policy is so important to operate the economic system. And in a monetary union situation, we don't have monetary policy for acting as, and you cannot have a central bank as a lender of last research. Then I'm so critical about monetary union, and in this, if you go to this website, you can download my article about this one. The second one, how important, if I got your situation, your point, how important is today to South America, United States, China, or of course China, right? There was a professor of economics of Federal University of Rio de Janeiro, Antônio Carlos de Castro. He used to say that nowadays you don't know anything about China, you don't know anything about the world, right? China is the most important economy in the world, right? And China is investing a lot in Africa and in Latin America too. I think that to have a fight, the diplomacy have a fight that as actual government has had with China is a big mistake, right? China is so important for all economies, all world. Then again, I think that you depend a lot of the China economy, the span of China economy. For instance, this year, the China economy will increase, according to the last IMF economic outlook report, China will increase 3 or 4%. This will have a bad impact around the world because you have the possibility of having a recession, United States and so on, other countries, besides the war between Ukraine and Russia, of course. But I think that you cannot forget, you cannot neglect the idea of having international and financial agreements with China economy, with Chinese economy.
Another question?
There is another one. Do you mind if you remove your mics? Just.
Can you go back in the slide? I don't remember the number, but it's where there is 5 proposals. There's one there.
5 proposals of the economic agenda?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I would like to ask about the third one. It's 5 times where you mentioned the Bancorp as well.
The Bancorp?
Yeah, where you mentioned the Bancorp.
The Bancorp is in the beginning. Go ahead.
It's in the beginning. So in the third proposal, the a supranational central bank, what would be? My question regards the interest rates. Yeah, that one. The interest rates, they are basically defined nowadays as a public information policy, the basic that there is the sorry, I'm very but the bank proposal, they would be like in the home world would be, let's say, or in a monetary union. But nowadays they are defined by like meetings, like the call meeting here in Brazil. And then they define and then they express what the interest rate will be, their expectations. It looks like a casino, as you said. What would be the consequences if that basic interest rate would be defined by a kind of algorithm or like a formula? There is not a series Taylor, the Taylor series, but what would that bring? Because would that have consequences on other private interest rates? There would be necessary meetings as well to reform it from time to time. Could it be changed actually, or are we stuck in this type of local meetings defining the national, like in Brasilia defines, in Washington defines, or the Fed defines the meetings for the interest rates? How would be the process in a new digital economy if there was like a separate national bank?
If I got your answer or your point, I'd say the following. The point of supranational bank proposal or the clear union proposal or the bank of proposal, it means that it is similar the idea of currency hierarchy. You cannot have a dollar, you cannot have a euro, you cannot have a yen or a pound that has high liquidity and other currencies that don't have any liquidity in the financial market, right? Then the idea of having a supranational bank or IMF, a modern IMF bank, something like that, and one currency, not a physical currency, but a virtual currency, is to mitigate the power of the central bank, of a local central bank, a counter-local central bank, impose inflation or deflation on the whole, and at the same time decide if the interest rate has to go up and the interest rate has to go down. This is the first point. The second point, if you have this kind of international monetary organization, it means that the basic interest rate set by this World Central Bank, World Economic Reform, World Economic Agenda, something like that, right? Will stabilize all domestic interest rate, right?
And then can I follow up? And what would be the consequence for democracy in general? Because if you have like only one like meeting board or board of directors somewhere in the world, or it's in the whole world, representatives, how would that affect?
In which terms I talk about democracy?
In terms of economic democracy, like distribution, and avoiding a heavy monopoly by information asymmetry.
I don't think that right, this one. On the contrary, if you know transparently that you have an international central bank, that this international central has to operate the basic interest rate to avoid instability, to avoid speculation, and so on. And at the same time, this bank just connect all surplus and debts around the world in terms of balance payments. I think that you don't have implications in terms of asymmetry, information asymmetry, asymmetric information. You don't have. I think that doesn't have any kind of relationship with democracy. I don't know this one, but I believe in this one, right? I don't know if I answer your question.
Yeah, you answered. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any other questions? So the two more, and then we stop. So can we get two
Sure,
questions?
sure.
So we two.
Yeah, mine is on inflation. Low inflation is a threat to the country. But my question is, why is it a threat to the country? Well, you know that when there's an inflation in the country, there's an increase in the real wage. Again, there's a reduction in the general level of prices in an economy, which where the least person can have something to buy in an economy. But this is the case where there's an inflation, where there's more commodity in the economy, which everybody can afford, it affects the development of a particular economy. So why is it a threat to a particular economy instead of benefiting the economy?
You are thinking about the benefit economics in terms of deflation or inflation, this one?
Inflation. And the other question also is, can a higher demand of commodity in a particular economy cause or be an effect of deflation for that economy?
First of all, I believe if you are Keynesian, right, you have inflation one in a specific situation, and this you can find how to pay for the war. If you have inflation, if your economy is if your effect demand is greater than the aggregate supply, only the situation you have inflation. When you have unemployment that you have right now, that is 8, 9, 10% in Brazil, for instance, you cannot say that you have a demand inflation, right? This is inflation, is an exogenous inflation, because we have the crisis between Russia and Ukraine, and at the same time you have the commodity price are going up, right? Then this is a supply shock, not a demand shock, right? Demand inflation. Then the inflation, you must worry about inflation only if your aggregated demand is greater than your supply, aggregate supply. This is my point of view, right? Then looking at the Brazilian economy or looking at the Fed, United States. Now the Fed fund interest rate is between 2.5, something like that. Increase the interest rate, doesn't care about to control the inflation, right? Shock is a shock. You must cross your arms waiting for the shock pass. Right? Then the second point, of course, inflation is more dangerous for developing countries like my country and like other countries, right? But again, if this inflation is not caused by demand, you cannot do anything. If you increase the interest rate that you are increasing right now, you provoke more disequilibrium in the economic system, right? I don't know if this was your point, right?
Yeah, and the second point, I mean, demand, a higher demand, that causes deflation in the country.
High demand because deflation?
Demand of commodity.
No, high demand, as I told, if demand is greater than aggregate supply, you have inflation, not deflation.
You already elaborated.
There's just one question there.
Can I just follow up on Philip's question because it's read another question which is there?
But here's before.
Before,
he
yes.
has a question there.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Thanks, Professor Ferrari. I'm Joe. My question is about natural interest rates and conventions. And I would like to ask you, in what extent do you think that Keynes really reject the idea of natural rate of interest? Because the liquid preference concept only deals with the fluctuation of the interest rate, the market interest rate, and not with its level, the way that I understand it. And to the best of my knowledge, what Keynes suggests to replace the concept of natural interest rate is the concept of conventions. And I don't know, I really don't know if it's a good choice. I know that there are other authors, for example, dearest Professor André and Roberto, that try to develop further the concept and apply it to Brazil as well of conventions. But I still think that it's a kind of a loose concept, that we can't have a sound path of research about the level of interest rates with this concept. And I would like to raise the point to add the discussion, the point that Marx made in the third book of Capital about the competition in credit market between financial companies and non-financial companies. And the market power of these two groups of companies as one of the main sources of how we can understand the level of interest rates. As Keynes has done, Marx did not develop it further, as everyone knows, the conditions that the treaty was published. But I think maybe it should be a better start point to build an alternative theory about the level of the interest rate. And I think it's very important for a major market, especially in our country, to understand it. And I think it would be at least an additional way to think about it beyond the concept of conventions. That's my point. Thanks.
Let me pick up just one more, two more questions, yeah.
Okay.
You, oh, you André?
Yeah.
I didn't recognize you, sorry about that. Sorry about that.
That's me.
Oh. This is the expert in conventions.
So thank you very much for this wonderful lecture. I took some very interesting notes. The question I have is just about the answer you gave about the supply a cost push inflation, and you said that we should do nothing. I agree with you if you say that we should do nothing with monetary policy, but how about fiscal policy? That's my question, because in my view, we can mitigate the effect of a cost push inflation by using fiscal policy. For instance, food and energy inflation. We know how to do this. You know?
As you are doing right now, reducing the tax, for instance?
No, not like this.
Yeah, but how?
No, not like this. Not like this. Doing the right thing. I mean, having buffering stocks.
Institutional arrangements.
Yeah. So
Yeah, I agree.
Oh,
Yes, you are right.
thank you.
Okay, very.
The last one here.
The question that Philip brought to me actually is the price fluctuation in general. If the authority is over-centralized, let's say, that the definition of, or even if it's public, but it's a formula, an algorithm, and if it's over-centralized, how does the price fluctuation locally behave? Or can it have problems if you have more than one price or several prices? Institutions that are price taking or price definition based on the interest rate from the central authority.
What do you think about different price?
Yeah, let's say one place, because you mentioned that there is you mentioned an article against the monetary union.
Mm-hmm.
So what would be the argument, the main argument for against it?
If you don't, let's go to the first point. As I told in my presentation, the first part when I talk about treatise, Keynes used the same idea of VIXL, natural interest rate, and market interest rate, right? And when he decided to use he decided to suggest the idea of have cheap money, it means that market interest rate has to be so similar to natural interest rate. And the natural interest rate is basically determined by the central bank, by the monetary authority, right? Then this is the idea that Keynes accepted in the treatise, but he rejected in the general theory, because general theory he used to say you must have cheap money, zero interest rate to mitigate the speculation action in the financial market. Then the monetary theory in the general theory has one specific function, the function of expand consumption in the long run by family taking debt, right? And investment to take risk, right? This is the point. And in terms of conventions, convention is very important. And convention is one particular agenda that you have in the post-Keynesian theory that were, in my point of view, was not explored adequately. I think that André Fábio Herber from Federal University of Rio explored this, but incipiently. I think that we must discuss the convention. And I think that the link, as I told you in my presentation, to discuss conventions, you must think more than post-Keynesian theory. You must link this one with institutionalist economy, right? But conventions is very important, as I told you before. If you don't have conventions, you don't have confidence in the economic system. If you don't have confidence in the economic system, you have fragile institutions. You must have strong institutions that bring confidence in the economic system, and you create conventions in the economic system. Then you can mitigate the gap of effect demand in the economic system. Right? I don't know if I answered your question, but I suggest you Andrés Modenés papers, Norberto papers, and Fábio Herber that you know.
Yes.
You balance your head, right? And the last one, say again, just the second part, please.
The main question is, which articles can I read, and you indicated, for the main argument on non-monetary union?
Which
are having multiple currencies operating, and how does it affect price fluctuation?
The main article that one. I suggest, as I told before, criticize the monetary union in South America. I suggest my article that you have in this website. And I suggest some articles, and we have a lot of people here that work with currency hierarchy. Ana, Simone Gels, and other, Daniela Prats, Luis Fernando de Paula, and so on. They discuss the idea why you cannot have currency hierarchy in the economic system. It's the same idea that brings from Keynes when he proposed a supranational currency of the banknote to avoid the currency hierarchy in the economic system, right?
We have a class on that on Friday morning.
Again, thank you so
Thank you
much.
very much.
And